Let's talk about the BCIB. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Phillies Satsu videocast, and today we're going to be talking about JT Realmuto and his chances of re-signing with the Phillies. Now, guys, before getting into this video, please subscribe if you have not yet. Please turn on the notification bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and let's get into this. Now, we have a lot to talk about in this one. JT Realmuto's top suitor, the New York Mets, went out and signed James McCann last week, so that takes the Mets out of the picture in the running for JT Realmuto, and that is just huge news for the Phillies. Great news, of course. It's been out for almost a week now. But now the question is, are the Phillies willing to re-sign JT Realmuto? It's going to be a big price the Phillies are going to have to pay. There are some other teams in there right now. The Toronto Blue Jays, I've heard in the mix. The Washington Nationals, who apparently met with JT Realmuto recently. So it's starting to get a little bit interesting. I think it's definitely going to be dragging out here for a little while. We're not going to know until probably late January, mid-February at the earliest, I'm sure. I mean, possibly even late February, right around the start of spring training. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. You have a lot of these clubs, of course, every professional sports team lost money in the year 2020, and a lot of money. Of course, the Phillies have already come out and said that they are having financial problems. Of course, the Phillies are not alone in this. And let me just talk about some potential suitors for JT Realmuto. The Los Angeles Angels, of course, are rumored to be in there. Once again, I already talked about this. They do have Max Stassi back there, of course. I just can't see the Angels going out and doing this. They need to focus on pitching. And as I keep saying, I believe that the Angels guy is Trevor Bauer. They desperately needed a big arm in that rotation. They went out and acquired Dylan Bundy from the Baltimore Orioles last offseason. And he had a great year at the Angels in a 60-game season, of course. They still have Ohtani. They don't really know his future in the rotation, of course, hitter and pitcher. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think Trevor Bauer would definitely be great for that rotation. He'd be the ace, and he'd really take the team to the next level. I definitely think they need a little bit more work, but I think going out and signing JT Realmuto wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for the Angels. As I said, they need to focus on pitching, and if they went out and signed JT Realmuto, this would be another player to take up payroll. They still have Albert Pujols. They still have Mike Trout. They owe a lot of money to. Of course, he's a superstar. They just went out and signed Anthony Rendon last offseason. They still owe Justin Upton a good amount of money as well. So I just can't see them going out and taking on another big contract in JT Realmuto. The Toronto Blue Jays, on the other hand, yet again, another team that one of the Toronto Blue Jays went out and signed a big name free agent like in recent history, right? One of the Blue Jays went out and made a big splash, like signing a superstar, or, you know, it just doesn't really happen that often for the Toronto Blue Jays. They're not a team that's going to go out and spend a lot of money, and I just doesn't really seem like a good fit for me. Of course, I definitely think they do need a guy back behind the home plate. There's no question about it. But the question is, are they willing to go out and spend money on JT Realmuto? Of course, this year they didn't even play in Canada. They played in Buffalo, New York, because of the restrictions. They were not allowed to play at Rogers Center, of course, in Toronto. So they had to go out and play in Buffalo, New York. So they definitely, I mean, there's no question, they definitely suffered financially this year. Every team did, of course. But once again, they're a very, very good young team. They made the playoffs. They got out first round in the wild card series. But when have the Toronto Blue Jays went out and acquired and signed a big name free agent? When has that really ever happened? Not very often. Not very often. So I really just highlight that, especially that in recent history, right? You saw them in the 1990s when they won the World Series in '93 when they beat the Phillies, right? Back then it was a different story. But in recent history, I'm talking about the past 10 to 15 years, when have the Toronto Blue Jays went out and signed a big free agent? I mean, it just never happened. You saw in 15 when they acquired David Price and Troy Tulowitzki in trade. Of course, they got Josh Donaldson there. Of course, they locked Bautista up to that extension probably about, 9 years ago or something like that. So, other than that, when have the Blue Jays really went out and, spent a whole lot of money? Not very often, right? So, I definitely think the Blue Jays, not a very big possibility. You got the Washington Nationals in there, of course. Apparently meeting with JT Realmuto. So I don't really know how serious this is. Nationals GM and President Mike Rizzo has really yet to explain to us if he is really serious with JT Realmuto. I'm not sure what Rizzo's plan is. As I talked about, apparently they're still interested in Kurt Suzuki. The Nationals are bringing him back. They still have Yan Gomes back there, of course, I believe. So he played 30 games this year, played half of the games, and he hit 300. So he had a pretty good year. Gomes definitely has proven himself that he could be a platoon back there. And I just don't really think that Realmuto to the Nationals makes a lot of sense. I think the Nationals are now entering a new phase. One of the older teams in baseball. They do have Max Scherzer coming off the books next season. They have Steven Strasburg for another 6 years. Of course, locked him up to that massive contract last December. Signed him to, I believe it was like 7 years, like 140 something. It was massive. They passed on Rendon and instead went with Steven Strasburg. Rendon and Strasburg both got paid the same amount of money in years, and Mike Rizzo chose Strasburg over Rendon. But yet that's besides the point. The Nationals do have a good amount of payroll tied into their players. They're going to have to pay Juan Soto like 5 years. So they're going to have to take that in consideration. And I predicted, I said I think Juan Soto could be baseball's first $500 million player due to the place where he's headed. I mean, he's just unbelievable. He's like one of the best players and young superstars in the game of baseball. He's putting up incredible numbers. He's just all around just a phenomenal player. Advanced stats, regular stats. He's just unbelievable, off the charts. He's better than any player on the Phillies. He's better than Harper. He's better than, he's just unbelievable. He's one of the best players in the National League. He's 22 years old, which is just unbelievable. He's just how young he is and how good he is. So it's just really incredible what he's doing. So, you're going to have to lock him up. There's some uncertainty there. What direction they headed in? They're one of the, turning into a younger team. They're pushing some of the older players out, like Max Scherzer, who's going to be coming off the books, as I said. So it's going to be interesting to see what direction the Nationals are headed in, but I just don't see it. Mike Rizzo has gone out and signed some big-name free agents. Like, for one, he went out and signed Max Scherzer in the 14-15 offseason. Signed Steven Strasburg that extension in May in 2016, and he eventually opts out. Brings him back on like that 7-year, like $140 million deal last offseason in December. So he does go out and spend money. He went out and signed Patrick Corbin in the 18-19 offseason to that massive 6-year contract. I think that was like 120 or something. I definitely got a good deal with the Nats there. There's no question about that. So he wasn't willing to pay Bryce Harper. He was not willing to pay Anthony Rendon. So what would lead me to believe that he would be willing to pay JT Realmuto? Of course, he's the best player. He's the best catcher in baseball. There's no question about it. He's the BCIB best catcher in baseball by far. But I just don't think the Nationals are willing to go that far for Realmuto. I think it's just talk. Are they bluffing? Is Rizzo trying to get the Phillies to raise their offer? Is he trying to put pressure on the Phillies? Because the last thing the Phillies would want to do is to see JT Realmuto in the Curly W, Bryce Harper's old team. They would hate to see that. Is Rizzo just trying to mess around? It wouldn't surprise me. And I don't blame Rizzo for doing that. It's kind of funny, honestly, because it's business, right? It's nothing personal. It's his business. Is that what Rizzo's plan is? Is he just trying to get the Phillies to raise their offer? I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised by that. And I had to laugh because SNY put something out, I believe it was the other day, and a lot of Phillies people saw this, so I'm sure if you're watching this video, I'm sure you might have seen this. They compared James McCann and JT Realmuto, and honestly, it really just made me laugh because they only put stats up that they actually had in common with each other, like the batting average, the home runs. I believe they maybe put the on-base percentage up there as well. They just showed some offensive stats. Didn't show anything about defense. Didn't show anything like that. They didn't really show some of the other advanced stats too, like WAR and things like that. They just showed average, home runs, and things like that. And they're like, well, you tell me. It seemed like pretty similar players. Typical of the Mets. Let's just put this graphic up here that's just supposed to fool everybody to make you think that James McCann and JT Realmuto are similar players. JT Realmuto is far superior to James McCann defensively and offensively. So don't give me that James McCann and JT Realmuto are very similar players. Are there some similarities offensively? Maybe. Yes, there are. But defensively, it puts JT Realmuto at a far better place than James McCann. So I do not want to hear the notion that, James McCann and JT Realmuto are similar players. Do not give me that. That's a lie. It's a lie. As I said, are there some similarities when it comes, come to offensive numbers, offensive stats like batting average, home runs, things like that? Yeah, like on base percentage too. Yeah, but they forgot to talk about was the WAR, the defensive numbers, of course, like throwing guys out and things like that. But they did not talk about that. So isn't that interesting? They left that part out because believe me, if the numbers were better, they definitely would have incorporated that in. So that just goes to show you everything you need to know about that. So do not be fooled by that graphic that they put up there. Of course, see that they just try. It's just to throw you off, right? It's to try to mess with your head to try to think that James McCann and JT Realmuto are comparable players, which they are not. So do not believe that. So let's get into the notion of the Phillies willing to spend for JT Realmuto. What I think is going to happen. The Nationals are not willing to pay that. I just don't think they are. It just doesn't make any sense to me. As I say, you still have Gomez back there. I do not see him going to Washington. I just don't see it. Toronto goes back to my point. When have they went out and signed a big-name free agent over the past 10, 15 years? When have they went out and did that? I can't even remember. As I said, in the 90s, you can make that argument. They did have some good teams in the 90s, of course. Of course, they did make some trades, but I just don't see Realmuto heading to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Angels are out, I believe, so I talked about that a little bit too. So what I think is going to happen is I think that Realmuto will fall into the Phillies' lap. And I'll just get into it. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be somewhat of a dead period when Realmuto's not really going to get offers that he wants. And it's just the Phillies are just going to sit back and see what happens. I definitely think the Phillies are definitely in contact with him. There's no question about it. But the teams that Realmuto is in contact with are not willing to pay him his asking price. And what really surprised me was when he didn't go to the Mets, because I for sure thought the Mets were going to pay that. And the fact that the Mets didn't play it just shows how expensive it is. And he's not going to get what he wants. There's no question about that. Muto definitely is in a bad situation right now. Of course, you're not going to come out and... Yeah, that's just my speculation. I think he's in a bad situation right now. He definitely went with the Mets. There's no question about it. They definitely talked. And Cohen, one of the most aggressive owners in sports, he's yet to prove himself, though. He says he is, but so far he hasn't really proved that he is. So I need to see him go out and do some stuff for me to believe that he is the most aggressive owner in sports. What I think is going to happen is I think he's going to fall into the Phillies' lap. No team is going to be willing to pay him that kind of money. And honestly, I don't think the Phillies are going to pay him that kind of money. But arguably, the Phillies are just going to pay him the highest price, and I think he's going to take it. And I think we can get in a pretty reasonable deal. As I said, it's yet to be determined. I mean, I don't know. I mean, could we get him at, 5 years, $100 million? It's always a possibility. It's always a possibility. I would not be surprised by that. Do we get him at 4 years, 75 or something like that? I doubt it. I don't think he's going to sign for that. But it's going to be somewhere in that range, 75 to 100 maybe. I don't think any more than that the Phillies are willing to go over. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if their cap is like 85 or like 80. I would not be surprised about that at all if I did hear that report. And honestly, I think it's going to drag out. I think it's going to go into January 1 to February. He's just going to wait it out to see who has the highest offer. He's just going to take it. And I don't think the Nationals are willing to wait that long. You saw that in 2018 and 2019 when Rizzo was in contact with Harper, and he really just was not willing to just wait there with an offer on the table all off-season. He was going to be like, okay, I'm going to put an expiration date in this offer. You're not going to sign it. We're out. We're out. And Harper waited too long, and Rizzo withdrew the contract offer. Of course, Harper was not going to sign that deal. Harper wanted to go back to Washington, but Rizzo wasn't willing. Rizzo and the Lerner family were not willing to give him the money he wanted. He would have went back. There's no question. He called in that interview in May of 2020 with Barstool Sports. Harper was badly hurt by the Nationals' offer. He wanted to go back, and the Nationals weren't able to do it for him. And now why would they be willing to? Of course, it's different money. Of course, Harper was more expensive, of course, way more expensive. But in the catching situation, I definitely just think that the Nationals, I just do not see them getting Realmuto. And of course, I keep talking about the Blue Jays, not really known for going out and getting big free agents. I do not see them waiting around either. And the Phillies have a lot of pressure on them from the fans. Going out and traded number one prospect, Cisco Sanchez, went out and traded a good young catcher in Jorge Alfaro, traded a good pitching prospect in Will Stewart. The Phillies just make so much sense. Number one, they have so much pressure to get him back from the fans, everybody, because it's a bad look to trade away all that value for just 2 years of control of a player, only to see him go to a division rival like the Nats, or even the Blue Jays, of course, who are in the AL East, who you don't really have to see, but still, it still stings. So Phillies make a lot of sense. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be lingering. Later on, the other teams are just going to be out. So I think JT Realmuto to the Phillies. I just think it makes a lot of sense. I kind of went over the teams that are in on him. The Nationals, the Blue Jays, rumored in. I've heard the Angels a little bit, not too much. Of course, the Phillies. I think Realmuto will end up with the Phillies. You have to be determined, maybe 4 or 5 years, around there. He's not going to get the money that he wants. Honestly, he's going to fall into the Phillies' lap. And of course, the Phillies have a lot of pressure from star right fielder Bryce Harper to get this deal done. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you have not yet. Please turn on the notification bell. Please like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Check out the social media link in the description section at Phillies House of Instagram, Harper Phoenix Instagram. Call or text 267-225-3392. Email me, phillieshouseof@gmail.com. Harper debate Saturday. I will be taking the side that Bryce Harper is not overrated. John will be taking the side that he is overrated. Tomorrow, Saturday, Harper debate. All tune in for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Luke, and I'll talk to y'all later. Get JT back. I'll see you guys.